This is Henry Longard, and I'm going to give a very introductory introduction to PolyHarp. This is the default setup, but it's set up for default landscape because this video is in landscape. It works just like a real AutoHarp, not really. If you tap a button, the button stays on. That doesn't happen in a real AutoHarp. But if you want to act like a real AutoHarp, you go to this button and flip that on. It shows a little up and down arrow, and that means that you have to keep it pushed down in order for it to stay down. That's because I like it to behave like a real AutoHarp, but some people don't understand that. But just for demo purposes, I'm turning it back off. Here's the G major. Here's the C major, F major, A minor, D minor, G minor, or C minor. And you see it kind of tracks where your finger is, and wherever you end up is the button that wins. In this case, it also does it, but if you pick up, the buttons go off and you just hear, which is maybe not what you want to hear. The other thing about this mode is it can put together two chords. So just like a real AutoHarp, if you push these two chords down, it will, because this is a G major and this is a G minor, the B and the B flat are both wiped out, whereas the G and the D stick around because those are both in both chords. So you get like a G5. It's a cheap and cheesy trick, but it also acts just like a real AutoHarp. Similarly, there's this button here called Scrub. If you put that on, even if you're all damped out, you'll hear all the damped strings as well. And I'm going to make them a little less damped. So if you never... So it's actually acting and sounding a lot like a real AutoHarp. You can do the same scrubbing tricks that you do with a real AutoHarp with this virtual one. So I'm just trying to get it to get as close to what I do with a real harp as possible. There are a few other fun things to notice here, like there's an attack and decay. In most places, attack and decay mean you change the attack and decay. In this case, it kind of does too, but the model of how I make synthesis in this program is a little different. So attack means the energy that you put in by stroking is going to come into the synthesizer more slowly. And decay means the energy that is going out of the synthesizer is going to go out quickly or slowly. Or in fact, if you put it way at the end, it doesn't go out at all, it just stays. It's on forever. And you could plug it in and make a drone or something and put some effects on it in some other program. But here, that's the really fast decay. As you can see, there's some significant latency here. Why? Because this is an iPad 3, the slowest device in my house. And I just wanted to show you how bad it could possibly be. But there is a trick you can do if you have a slow device like this. You probably don't, but I do because I don't have faster machines than this. Really. I have a little bit faster. You go into the instructions here. There's a lot of instructions. And you can go to different sections of the instructions just by tapping the little section button here. It's sort of like the table of contents. And this is the settings section, which actually interacts with the program. There's a thing here called the effective sample rate divider. What it does is it doesn't really change the sample rate, which stays at 44,100 hertz. But what it does is it says just don't calculate every one of them. Calculate, in this case, every fourth one. So the effective rate is going to be like 11, but in fact the outside processes are going to see it at 44. It's just a way to make things work a little better, oddly enough. So I don't know if it's snappier, but it certainly can handle more polyphony. And we can check that out like this. Speaking of polyphony, here's the polyphony button. I make it easier for you to change the polyphony by these little, by 10s, by 1s. So it gives you a kind of precise way of doing it. There's no reason to have more polyphony than there are strings. So I also have another feature, which is if you tap the polyphony button, it sets it automatically to the number of strings. And actually, if you tap it and hold it, it sets it to, tap it, double tap it, that is, not tap it and hold it. It will set it to the maximum number of strings played in any of the chords, which might be somewhat less. Like many synthesizers, if you have more notes than you have oscillators, it will go and do an algorithm to assign note information to the oscillator that is quietest, or is not being used the most, or is the last one. So that also makes it louder if you have the polyphony down, because it doesn't have to compensate for all the other things. So it's sometimes a good idea to turn the actual volume down. But we'll get it back to 44. Again, you can put the attack down and the decay up, and it doesn't really behave the way you would think it might because of the algorithm going on inside there. But I don't mind that because I wrote it for me. I might change the synthesizer in a later version to make it sound more string-like, or to have an even faster algorithm which will give me more polyphony, which is what I really am after. Now over here also, there is an interesting section. What is one of the main problems with an auto harp? Well, I have chords that run from E flat to E, but what about B? What about F sharp? What about C sharp? What about D flat, which is similar to an A flat? So there are obviously not enough room on a real auto harp, and even on this virtual one really, to put all the chords in that you might want to put in. So instead you use this transposer button, or it's rather like a capo, and so here it says, oh, we're based on C2, now we're based on G2 by adding this major fifth. So you can make it go up by another major fifth. Now it's gone and recalculated all the chords, recalculated all the strings, and so now where the C was is now a D. And you can get that F sharp that you love so much. And the B, the most useless of the keys, but I don't like B's. I don't mind F sharps as much. I've got prejudices about my chords. And you can send it back by going the other way. And you can change this number to make it transposed by any other interval, but most of the time you want to go by fifths because that's how these things are sort of set up. Again, this damper says how damped the damping is. This way is damped really fast. Hear how that clamps down right away? But if I move it like over here, it's a much softer damp, and you can adjust it anywhere in the middle. So that kind of covers most of these buttons here. There's a clear, which means in case you've gotten into a mess like this, you just shut them right up. And then there's the MIDI button. That means instead of running the internal synthesizer, you're going to send MIDI instead. The way you set that up is you go off and you see where you can send your MIDI. Right now I'm not running anything, so that's going to be very boring, and I'll do that in another demonstration, because why not? And this button here pops you over to the host controller in case you are being hosted by something like OM or AudioBus or any of the other great programs that can host inter-app audio apps. This works on AudioBus and inter-app audio. So those two situations are covered. So that's it for like general, what do these controls do? Why are these here? And you can find out lots more in info, but I'm also going to talk about them in other videos.